Hey guys, welcome to Top of the Barrel. This is the very first podcast episode of Top of the Barrel, and I want to first thank you all for joining me. So, what I wanted to do is take the opportunity to dedicate this episode to who I am, where I'm from, and what I feel I can offer in terms of like content for everyone. So, first, I'll start off with some things about myself. I'm extremely quirky, believe it or not, a little nerdy. Um, I'm extremely loving, and being around me, you should probably feel alive. You know what I mean? Like, I like to keep an up tempo attitude for the most part. So, anyways, I am mixed with Black and Korean. I am your Blasian. So, my dad was Black, my mom was Korean. I grew up a military brat, so obviously, you know, a lot of the times those things happen through military situations. So my dad was stationed in Korea, of course, met this amazing Korean woman and married her and had me. Through that, I gained three amazing brothers, full Korean. And so that was a big part of who I am and how I was raised. And I think that contributes a lot to, a little bit about me and perspective. So, of course, being in the military, we moved a lot. So I was born in California, for Fort Ord, California, which is also known as Monterey Bay. So shout out to anyone who's from there because it's a beautiful little city in Cali. The beach out there is amazing. And then from there, of course, we moved to Germany and I spent a very large portion of my life in Germany. I have some extremely fond memories in Germany and some really some really interesting ones because that was kind of the time where you realize I got into a lot of fights when I was a kid. So Germany was fun. The candy was great. The food was great. Great. So anyway, that being said, growing up a lot in Germany with a Korean mom was life. We did life as Korean culture. Take your shoes off when you come into the house. We eat nothing but Korean food. My mom could cook like no other, so she could cook everything. But our typical meals consisted of rice and kimchi. So from there, we moved to Kansas. So I've lived in Fort Riley, Kansas. I've also lived Junction City, which is, kind of close to each other. And did a lot of growing up there as well. Spent a little bit of my elementary years there. From there, we moved to Georgia. So spent some more time in my elementary years and middle school years there. So from Georgia, my dad actually was stationed in Texas. My mom ended up wanting to kind of stay put in Georgia with her four kids. She was tired of the traveling life and wanted us to settle down. My brothers were in high school and one had already graduated at the time. So it was one of those things where my mom just kind of wanted everyone to settle in. So my dad went to Fort Hood. So I'm kind of my story is more of like a life that changed overnight, which I'm sure happens to a lot of people. So my mom ended up passing away when I was 12. That hit me pretty hard. So, at that time it was just me and my three older brothers. And my dad at the time had already been in a new relationship, so I had already kind of been placed into a new step family. So on the way out, my brother who I was closest to ended up coming with me, and shortly after, he enlisted into the military, and my other two brothers kind of went their own way, and I had lost contact with them. So during that time, once my brother enlisted into the army, I lost complete contact with him. And it was almost 10 years by the time I reunited with him. And that was him. Because my other two brothers, I did not reunite with almost 14 years later. Found out one of my brothers, my middle brother, ended up passing away. So the last time I saw him was the last time I saw my mom, which was disheartening, but you know, things happen. Um, so of course, I ended up having to move from Georgia to Texas, to Fort Hood, where my dad was stationed with our new family. My stepmother, she was Korean, and she was deaf. And so, you have this young 12-year-old girl who just lost her mother. Now in this new state, this new family, living in an apartment. I went from like a 5-bedroom house to like a 1-bedroom apartment. And then, with a stepmother for the first time, who was Korean. So she had the Korean culture in her, but she couldn't speak. So it was definitely interesting trying to adapt to life during that time. Uh, I lived in what we call the bricks now. So if you're from Killeen, Fort Hood, you know where that is, I'm pretty sure. So that was not the safest area. It's still not the safest area, but that's where I grew up at. And, for those that are familiar with that. So anyways, shortly after that, my dad was, you know, divorced and then remarried to another stepmother that I do actually call my bonus mom and my bonus family. So she's from Guam. And so growing up from high school, period, through high school, my culture was Guamanian, Chamorro. So we lived the Chamorro lifestyle for the most part. A lot of the food that we ate, the islander type foods and the gatherings, the Guam liberations, those were all a part of life. So it was really interesting. So then I went from like a 1-bedroom apartment to like a 2-bedroom apartment with like 7 people and a dog. So that was life. On East Side, and if you're from Killeen, then you know that one too, because during that time, a lot of the people in high school, their parents would tell them, "Oh, you can't pick Diane up," or "Oh, you can't drop her off. It's dangerous over there." But at the time, of course, I didn't know it was dangerous. I was just living. But of course, I knew I didn't have what other kids had. So I played a lot of sports in high school. Played volleyball, basketball, ran track one year. Um, it was what I did. It was kind of like my outlet for life through everything that I was going through, daily stresses and, not getting along with step parents, because Lord knows I've had my share of fights and, and arguments, just dealing with my parents. And so, sports was everything for me. It was my way of being myself. So that being said, I'm extremely athletic and I gravitate to anything that is sports related, believe it or not. If I could do it, I'm going to try to do it, and I'll probably end up doing it pretty well, in my opinion. So through high school, of course, I grew up in a way where it was like, okay, Diane, when you graduate, you're going to get a job and you're going to work this job and you're going to progress in this job and you're going to help us pay the bills. That was kind of the motto for me growing up. If I wasn't going to do that, the other option was, hey, Diane, go into the military, because my entire family's military. And so, I was really rebellious. Like, I'll be honest. I didn't agree with either one of those those options. I just couldn't really see myself in the military, and I just really couldn't see myself at that time finding like a job that I just settled into and just was like, well, I'll move up in these ranks just because I know this is how it's supposed to be, and I'm going to pay my parents' bills for the rest of my life. Like, that was not the life I wanted for myself. So I would have arguments with my parents at the time and just be like, why don't you push me to go to college? Like, I was applying to colleges on my own. I had no clue what I was doing. My friends were coming to school, telling me all these college applications they had and what they were doing. And I just was like so on the opposite realm of things. And I remember telling my parents, you know what? I'm going to go to college. That's what I'm going to do. And so I ended up leaving, going to Temple, which is not too far from Killeen, and playing volleyball there. Walked onto the volleyball team. My parents were shocked I made it. I wasn't shocked I made it, but I think they were just shocked that I was able to get into school without them. So it was more so that, I think. that they were impressed with. Like, okay, she made the volleyball team, and like he ended up having to offer me a scholarship at that point because I deserved it at the time. So it was nice. It was nice to know that I was able to be independent and walk into a college and be able to get myself into college without, my parents' help or, having their support financially. So there was that. So, I think they were proud that I did that. Shortly after that, I ended up, you know, saying, "Ah, man, I need a year off." I think a lot of people, they get to that point in life, and sometimes like you think to yourself, like, is school really for me? And there were different factors in it. Is this a school I want to come back to? So of course, where did I go? Ended up right back in Killeen. Killeen, I have a love-hate relationship with Killeen. Um, it's been said that a lot of people, like where they grow up at or where they're born, they don't usually veer off into different states and countries and things like that. And it's very rare for someone to move from where they're from. Familiarity is important. Um, I just wasn't that kid. Like, I just have never been that person. So, moving back to Killeen was almost like devastating. It was like, oh man, I'm back here. So when I got the opportunity to move to California, where half of my family is in Long Beach, I took that opportunity and I went there with $1,000 in my bank account. I was literally working 3 shifts to like stack money, and then like $1,000 doesn't seem like a whole lot, but I had to do a lot of shopping before I left. So that's what I left with, $1,000. I had already bought my plane tickets. I was ready. I got to California with $1,000 and ended up, long story short on that, working 3 jobs, no transportation. I made a living in California for almost 3 years by myself, which is tough, I think, for anyone. I think anyone who's wanting to pursue anything in Cali knows you got to have some type of hustle game to make a living on your own and survive well in California. So I feel like I have that hustle mentality. So I didn't have a car. I had 3 jobs. I worked a bar job. I worked an airport job. I worked at a restaurant. And in between that, I worked at a movie theater. Like I was on the hustle, and I was going to school, and I was playing volleyball full time. I did a lot in California. I grew up a lot in California. Public transportation is everything, by the way. So anyway, during that time, believe it or not, I reunited with my first brother. After 10 years, I finally reunited with the brother that went into the military, who was like the brother that was closest to me. And that led me to meeting who is now my husband. So after 10 years, and just being able to see him on Skype for the first time was so awesome. And then, the story behind it all of my husband seeing my picture that my brother had of me. And next thing you know it, I had a plane ticket flying out to Georgia because that's where he was stationed. I'm meeting my future husband, and I didn't even know it. So that is our first time really meeting. And I was still in college. Unfortunately, he was deployed quite a few times in between that time. I was living life during that time, being in college and in California. And I didn't think I was ever going to leave California. And so it was just kind of one of those things where, the time wasn't right. But, lo and behold, I'm here now in Georgia, currently living in Atlanta with my husband, who I met all those years ago, who is best friends with my brother. They were roommates. They literally were everything. So it's nice to know that, my brother had this guy that he trusted that much. So now is now my husband. So at this point, I'm married. I've been married little over 3 years. We actually have four amazing babies. Well, they're not babies anymore, kids that range between the ages of 2 and 13. So, I feel like I've been doing the mommy thing for most of my life. My kids are my world. My family's my world, period. I also have like this amazing dog that I was surprised with not too long ago. So he became my new baby. But uh, I got him potty trained. And so, like, at this point, I'm a stay at home mom who's got potty trained kids. I feel almost liberated in my life at this point. So, but as you know, and as well as everyone knows, not everything is always rainbows, butterflies, and sunshine. So, 2019 has been one hell of a year. 2019 has literally, if it could throw blows, it probably took its hardest blows on me. I lost my father this year on January 13th. And the last time I spoke to him was January 11th, which was my birthday. So that's hard to relive and talk about at the time at this moment. But once again, living through our trials and tribulations and the things that the storms that we go through, you sit down and you recap your life. And for me, I realized in this moment I could not continue to live my life without living my dreams. So I feel like, this podcast is dedicated to my dad as well. Something that's living through me. I need to get out into the world. It's something I've wanted to do since I was young. And, I just want to pursue my dreams. I want to pursue what I was made to do on this earth. And I really, really honestly dedicate that to my dad. I feel like if, unfortunately, the situation that happened, but I think it was a wake up call for myself to realize that, it was time to go ahead and make my dreams come true. Which leads me to why I've started this podcast. So, look, Top of the Barrel has been in my brain for years now. So, just watching the world kind of grow into, what it is now, like everything's social media, everything's like talk radio, and it was just something that I was like, oh, I wish I would have just invested in myself during that time. And I guess it just wasn't my time. So now here we are. It's my time. I'm finally bringing my dreams to fruition. I'm able to actually have this happen for me, and I'm super excited to bring it out to you guys. Everything that I've wanted to do and just be heard. And so, I can't wait to go over these topics with you guys. We're going to go over a variety of things like relationships, parenting, kids, social media, military life. Because, of course, as you know, like now, military life is a big part of my life because lo and behold, my husband's in the military. Who knew I'd end up with a military man? We'll go over things like self-esteem, self-love, culture, and how people adapt. And I think that these things are going to be topics for those that can really vibe on a daily life. Like how you get through your daily stressors. How do you deal with them? What are different perspectives on how you can deal with them? And I think it's very important. So I'll tell you where Top of the Barrel came from. That name, if you actually Google it, the definition of it is you're living off or from the top of the barrel, meaning you are living your best life. You're not living off the bottom of the barrel. You're not scraping the bottom of the barrel. You are living at the top of the barrel, the best life you could possibly live. And that is what I want for everyone who's listening to me. That's what I want for myself continuously, through everything I've been through in my life. And I've just kind of given you guys a small portion of the things I've been through. We've only touched on, just a little bit, but no matter what, I feel like I have always kind of tried to live my life at the top of the barrel, tried to live my best life through every situation that was handed to me, and not just year after year, but day after day. And those are the important things, like step by step, the little things that happen throughout the day that you can implement into your life so you can carry them on into the next year. So with these things that we're going to talk about on this podcast is going to be something that I hope will motivate people, will give different perspectives into life for everyone, as well as how to deal with your struggles, your stressors, and your rewards and your accomplishments. Because believe it or not, emotionally, you and the people around you may or may not know how to handle those things. And so those are the things that get us through our daily life. And I want to be a part of helping anyone that I possibly can to become a little bit more open-minded on how they can broaden their mind into dealing with life on a daily basis. Like what's real and what's not real. Our world is, all social media based. What are you looking at every day? Like, how does that affect you? And getting different perspectives on different situations. And I think it's going to be something that we're going to be able to touch a lot of people with. So I hope that you guys are definitely here to stick with me throughout this journey. And I hope that I get to, really see you guys again on my next episode next week. We'll get into our very first topic. And I want you guys to continue living off the top of the barrel. And we'll go from there. So have a good one.